to Introduction to New Testament Greek 2023. Now this is an 8-class session,
I don't know where the staff is that controls this.
thank you, sir, but my syllabus is only the first 4, because I'm pretty certain this is what we're going to do the first 4. The last 4 I'm not sure yet, because I make changes as we go along. We had one class before that was strictly parts of speech, sentence structure. We're actually going to cover that today. Then I'll open that up for other things. I used to have quizzes in our class. I've done away with that. They're take-home quizzes. Because I want this time to be spent on the grammar part. I want to waste time sitting here watching take a quiz. There's no grade involved in here, so whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Okay? So, you'll see on the syllabus, got a bunch of stuff we're going to cover today. Class 2 is when we talk about the inflected nature. How the Greek is inflected. There's endings, there's things that get tagged to the front, and we're just going to jump into the pool of the inflections, right? I'm just going to expose you to it. And then we'll start hard in class 3, looking at just verbs. Okay, present active, indicative, and what a verb is, and the endings and stuff like that. And then we'll hit the nouns. And then after that, we'll see. We'll see what I think would be best for us to do and how we're going. Now, 3 of you have had a smidgen of Greek. One of you has had almost a couple classes, and I think we have a newbie. But I'm going to treat it as if you know nothing of Greek. So we're all going to grow together. All right. Now, dates. The dates haven't changed, but today's the 9th. We're going to meet again the 23rd of this month. And then in October, because of the conference that we have, we can't meet on that Saturday. I've got October 7th and 14th. That's 2 Saturdays in a row. And I know the Man of God conference is the 7th. Now, are you going to the wedding? Are you going to Cameron's wedding? Cameron and Madeline?
Not sure.
Not sure? Okay, so there's a wedding on the 4th. I'm not going to it. I don't want to postpone it. Those people know my other family. My wife and my kids more than me, so I don't have to be there. So I'm going to be here on the 4th. I think the wedding's at 10, and we're here from 9 to 11, so whatever. I don't want to goof up our schedule and put that off, because there's going to be a gap between the October 14th and November 4th.
Right.
So you're going to have a good 3 weeks, 4 weeks almost of study time, and I don't want to extend that anymore. So, and then November is going to be the 4th and 18th, and then December is going to be the 2nd and 16th. So I try to set that up so it's not, we're not going to get in the way of Thanksgiving, we're not going to get in the way of Christmas. So it's early enough in the month that hopefully we can make this work. Now it's an 8 session class, 2 hours each. So it's only 16 hours, but there's going to be homework you're going to be doing. So more hours at home delving into this stuff. If there's interest at the end of the class, we have had an advanced class, or it's more of just an addition. We had another 6 weeks, I think, that we did. And we went more into pronouns and emphatic constructions and stuff like that. So we'll see. If you guys are like, okay, I'm done, that's fine too. We'll do the best we can. All right, so today, a format, I'll give you quizzes to take home. It's not going to be a quiz every week or every session necessarily. There's going to be one today though. We'll review it, we'll go over any homework that you might have, any questions you might have in your studies. Then we'll hit the Greek lesson, whatever the grammar lesson is for that day. I'll give you a vocabulary list. And that vocabulary list is on a sheet of paper that you can fold up and make into flashcards if you want. All right? And then I'll assign some homework. And then we started last time doing this thing called Hot Off the Sermon.
That's fun.
And then, or from the equipping hour, or from home fellowship group. Now, Rod's in the Old Testament now, so we're not going to get a whole lot from the sermon unless Louis and Luis, sneak in there. There's going to be some more revelation, I think, coming up for the equipping hour. and I might dip back into the lessons that we had before. But sometimes they'll say something from the pulpit that catches my attention, say, we gotta look at that, right? In fact, don't tell me, David had a question the other day about, it was two, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was said at two different locations, and he was wondering if it was the same Greek word. And it was the same Greek word, it was just in a different form. So again, I would highly recommend that during the preaching, if they're in the New Testament, you have your interlinear open and you're following along. That's how you learn. Looking and seeing what they say, and if the preacher actually does talk about the Greek, you can be right there going, yeah, there it is, or I see it, or whatever. But you got to be in it. You got to use it, or you're going to lose it, right? And then, if there's time, we'll do some exegeting. We're going to draw out from the Greek, and we're going to start in John 1:1, and just kind of work through the 5 verses there, and we'll kind of see how that goes. If sometimes, we're right up to the 2 hours. Sometimes we might end a little early. If I don't cover all this stuff today, we'll just pick up next time. I don't want to rush through it, but we have to have a good basis to go on. I'm old school. We're going to use a book to look stuff up. Now I know there's lots of apps out there, there's software out there, but for beginning Greek class, I'm being presumptive here, but I don't think you know what you're looking at yet. All right? Present active, indicative, first person singular. What is that? Well, until you've looked it up and you kind of see it and you get a feel for it, then when you buy the software, then it makes sense to you. Because I've had people buy, not in this class, but other places, they bought a Greek interlinear that had Strong's numbers, and had all these little things on there, and say, hey, look at this. So what does that mean? I don't know what it is. Okay, well, maybe you should have bought it right away, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Is it 4 winds?
Say it again?
Was it 4 winds?
I think it was. 4 winds, that's
We
right.
had 4 winds in Revelation 7, and then 4 winds somewhere else.
Matthew somewhere, I think.
Yes. I was
Yeah.
wondering, is it the same? It's the same root.
Same root. One was of the 4 winds, and one was like the nominative, just naming it the 4 winds. So
it wasn't identical.
yeah. Okay. And what I will do is give you the hint, the slideshow that we're seeing, I'm giving you. Separated by the blue.
Thank you. I'm gonna need to get a binder. It's not a problem, I have a collection of binders.
Thank you.
That's not Greek.
No, it's not.
All right, so this is the slide we're on. I put 2 slides per page. And again, feel free to write on these are yours to do whatever you want with. Follow along. And so today we're going to talk about the alphabet, the vowels. And this word is pronounced diphthongs, not dip. Diphthongs. The PH has an F sound to it, right? Diphthongs, diaeresis mark, whatever that is, iota subscript, breathing marks, accents, punctuation marks, syllables. Then we're going to dip into parts of speech. And I think last time we may have gone the English route. We're just going to go straight to the Greek. The 10 parts of speech that most people agree for the Greek. And we'll play with that, and then we'll talk about sentence structure. And then, if we have time, we'll do some exegeting. All right, so the Greek alphabet then. There are 24 letters in the Greek alphabet of the Koine Greek period. The Koine period is the universal or common Greek time from 330 BC to 330 AD. We may, at the end of this class, not today's class, but the end of this whole class, talk about textual criticism and certain manuscripts and things like that. Because originally, the Greek text was all capital letters, no spaces, no punctuation marks, right? And that threw me. When I started learning Greek, it really upset me that the punctuation marks weren't inspired, right? It's like, well, because some people make a big deal of, there's a comma there, okay? Well, man put that stuff there. And maybe it was through divine intervention, who knows, but the original manuscripts didn't have that stuff in there. So, you have to have some faith in some of this Greek stuff, but even without that, there's enough to learn about the Greek to edify yourself without having to go through the weeds of textual criticism. But we'll see how it goes. All right, so Koine Greek, the common Greek, was spoken as freely in the streets of Rome, Alexandria, and Jerusalem as in Athens. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, the Greek alphabet, the capital or uppercase letters are called uncials, and the lowercase letters are called minuscules. Right? Uncial comes from the Latin, meaning an inch or so high. Minuscule from the Latin, meaning rather small. Now, in the printing world, handset type, when they did printing, they'd have these little characters, right? And they're upside down and backwards. And you would take those characters and put them on a stick, and you'd apply ink, apply paper, and then there's your image, right? So what they would have, they'd have a tray. The upper tray, the uppercase had the capital letters in it. The lowercase had the lowercase or non-capitalized letters. So that's where those terms, uppercase, lowercase, come from. All right, so here's our alphabet. And if you go to the internet and you look up pronunciation, you're going to get a variety of different ones. What I'm going to give you today is what I'm going to go on. Right? So if you want to go modern or you want to go with somebody else, you're more than welcome. But this is how I'm going to pronounce it.
So yours is Koine?
Yes.
Your pronunciation? Oh. Even though they don't really know exactly what that is.
Exactly.
It's what we think Koine is.
Right. So I've never heard someone from that period speak it, so I don't know for sure. But this is what I was taught. It works for me. Even if you mispronounce something, it doesn't take away from the meaning of the word. Okay? Well, but some pronunciations, you can tell someone isn't all that learned the way they, like logos, it's not logos, it's lagos. The omicron there is an ah sound. Anyway, so here we go. Alpha, alpha, beta, gamma, either one, I go with gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, middle row, iota, it's not iota, it's iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi. Now some will call pi p. I go with pi, right? In math they use pi, so I'm just going to stay with that. Then we have rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. So you have the capitals on the left, and then the lowercase in the middle. I still get tripped up over the capitals. But there's not a lot of capitalization, proper nouns, things like that. But I don't worry too much about it. And you'll see that some of these letters look very similar to English, like the rho. It's like a P, right? Well, it's a rho. It's an R sound in Greek. Now, when I'm going through my analytical lexicon, it's in alphabetical order. I'll say P in my brain, right? Because it's in that same order, but it's rho.
How do you pronounce the three just below each one?
Phi, F-E-E, Ki, K-E-Y, Psi, P-S-E-E. So Phi, Ki, Psi. So in sororities and things, you might say Phi, Chi, whatever. No, it's Phi, Ki, Psi for Greek, Koine. All right, and then we have Word Powers handout. I think I gave this to you already, but I'm going to give it to you all again. So on the far left, you have the name of the letter in Greek. Then you have the actual name in English. The Greek letter, lowercase, Greek letter, uppercase. The English equivalent. So for instance, the alpha has an A sound, the beta has a B sound, the gamma has a G sound. It also has an NG sound, an Nye, almost like Spanish. Angelos, angel, has two gammas in it. It has an unga sound to it. Then delta is a D sound, epsilon's an E sound. Zeta, zeta, Z sound. Eta is an E or an E sound, E. Theta, TH sound, like theos, God. Then you have iota, sort of an E sound. Kappa K, lambda L, mu M, nu N. Then XE has an X sound to it. Omicron is an O sound. Okay, there's an A sound and there can be an O sound. And then omega is the long O sound. Pi is P sound, rho is R sound. Sigma is an S sound, and notice there's three looks of the sigma. If it's capitalized, it looks like that huge E, capital E kind of looking thing. The one that looks like an S, that's the one that ends up at the end of a word. Anywhere else in the word where there's a sigma, it looks like that one with an A with a hat on it, or an O with a hat on it, right? So those are all S sounds, it depends on where that is in the sentence. Then tau is T sound, upsilon is a U sound or U sound, phi is a PH sound, F almost, chi as in Christos, psi, you'll notice the Greek example under psi is psuke, soul. And omega is the O sound, long O. And then it gives you the pronunciation in English, some Greek examples, and what those meanings of those examples are. If you had time to look at this, any questions about any of these? Or even now, as you're looking at it? And our alphabet again, gamma. When the gamma is doubled, it is pronounced NG as in angelos, as an angel. Again, the sigma, the end of the word, it looks like the S. If it's anywhere else, it's the O with the hat on it, looking kind of thing. Then omicron is a short O, omega, long O. And just note the words. It's O micron, O small, and omega, O big, right? So small O and a large O in that sense. Greek English equivalents, that's also on word powers. And I didn't put that on the alphabet. At some point, I want you to wean yourself away from the English and try to think Greek all the time. So even though I said sometimes I look through the analytical lexicon, I got P in my mind, I'm trying to think Greek. The more you think Greek, the more you learn the alphabet that way, the easier it's going to be for you. Any questions about pronunciation? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, pi, chi, psi, omega. And that's just the name of it, okay? So you can, when you look at it, you can kind of know how to look something up in the dictionary. All right. The Greek vowels are alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, upsilon, omega. There are some vowels called open vowels where the tongue is away from the roof of the mouth. Like alpha. When you say alpha, my tongue hits bottom. Alpha, it's way down there. Epsilon, the tongue is like midway. Iota, my tongue goes way out. Iota. So there are open vowels and there are closed vowels. The Greek diphthongs. Sometimes two vowels are united and blended into a single sound, which is called a diphthong. So you have the alpha and iota together, and it has an I sound as an idle. Epsilon iota has an A sound as in the word eight. Omicron iota, an oi sound. Oikos, as in oil in the English. There's that oi sound. Alpha upsilon, an owl as in kraut, sauerkraut. Epsilon, upsilon, U as in feud. Omicron, upsilon, U as in group. And then upsilon, iota, we as in we. Huios, sun. Huios, we. And so here are some of these diphthongs in some of the Greek words. You have kai, ami, oikos, autu, euangelion, u, and huios. So when you have that Greek diphthong, you pronounce it as that diphthong. It's one sound. Okay? Then there's the thing called the diaeresis mark. When two vowels are together, yet not a diphthong. The diaeresis mark is frequently placed above the second vowel to signal that the two vowels are pronounced separately. Turn to Matthew 17:3 in your interlinear. Please. Looking at chapter 17, verse 3. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Look at the word Moses in your interlinear, the Greek. So you have two vowels, but this diaeresis mark, it's almost like an umlaut in other languages. It's telling you that those two are pronounced separately, not as one sound. So it's mu'uses for Moses. In the English, the word naive, when you look at old dictionaries, naive will have that diaeresis mark, and the word cooperate used to have it, right? I couldn't find it now, but because there's two O's at the beginning, you could say cooperate, but it's cooperate because there's two separate sounds. So it doesn't happen a whole lot, but when you run across that, I want you to know what that symbol stands for. All right. Another non-diphthong combo is iota, eta. We normally pronounce it ea, but in the name Jesus, the vowel combination of those two is to mirror the Hebrew Aramaic yod sound, so they are pronounced together as ye. So it's Jesus. I used to pronounce it Jesus until I was taught differently that, because of the yod sound, it's pronounced ye. So it's Jesus, not Jesus. Now, do you have to know that in order to do the Greek? No. Because a lot of times you're not going to be pronouncing it, you're just looking at it. You're looking it up and seeing what the meaning is. But it's good to know the pronunciation and say it to yourself. And as you're reading, and we're going to say it out loud in our class as we go along, because the more you hear it, the more you are in it, the more it's going to stick. Iota subscript. The iota subscript is an iota written under a vowel. You see that under the eta there, as in arche. If you look at your bookmark on the back side, we're at the bottom, John 1. The second word in is arche. You can see it there. There's an iota subscript under the eta. It originally followed the vowel, but over time came to be written under it, and it is silent and not pronounced. So it's going to be one of those things, I'm going to say this often, it's there. That's the way it is. That's how it ended up. Originally it wasn't, but somehow the scribes or somebody eventually, maybe to shorten it, maybe they ran out of parchment. Parchment was expensive, so maybe they put the iota underneath. I have no idea why, but that's how it comes to us now. And it's just there. I want you to recognize that it's there, but we don't pronounce it. Okay, iota subscript. All right. Before I go on here, I did forget a couple things. A.T. Robertson, A Grammar of the New Testament in Light of Historical Research, right? This is the tome. A little bit of history here. Anybody heard of John Brown of Haddington? Okay, it's a Scottish guy. There's a couple of John Browns in history. This one is John Brown of Haddington. So at the age of 16, John Brown of Haddington startled a bookseller by asking for a copy of the Greek Testament. He was barefooted and clad in ragged homespun clothes. He was a shepherd boy from the hills of Scotland. "What would you do with that book?" a professor scornfully asked. So the way I was told this story, he walks into this bookstore, says, "I want the Greek New Testament." There's a professor, the university local is, what do you want that for? Right? "I'll try to read it," the lad replied. And so the story is, the professor said, "Okay, if you can read it, I will give it to you for free. I'll pay for it, you can have it." He says, "I'll try to read it," the lad replied, and proceeded to read off a passage in the Gospel of John. He went off in triumph with the coveted prize. Then it goes on, but the story spread that he was a wizard and had learned Greek by black art. He was actually arraigned for witchcraft. But in 1746, the elders and deacons at Abernathy gave him a vote of acquittal, though the minister would not sign it. So this little kid, he knows Greek, it must be witchcraft, right? Fast forward, John Brown became a divinity student and finally professor of divinity. In the chapel at Mansfield College, Oxford, Brown's figure ranks with those of Doddridge, Fry, Chalmers, Venet, and Schleiermacher. He had taught himself Greek while herding his sheep, and he did it without a grammar. Surely young John Brown of Haddington should forever put to shame those theological students and busy pastors who neglect the Greek Testament, though teacher, grammar, and lexicon are at their disposal. That was always a neat little
So that
story.
kid was a prodigy
Yeah,
to be able to do that.
yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
And then this is from Homiletics by Rew, R-E-W. He's a Lutheran. He writes, if the preacher, owing to defective preparation, has no Hebrew, he may find not a substitute, but a stopgap in the cross-reference Bible with its valuable variorum readings and renderings. As for the preacher incapable of using the Greek New Testament, he will have difficulty to prove his right to exist.
Fighting words.
So there you have it. So for the lay person, it's not a big deal. But if you're preaching the gospel, the Greek will only help you. I can't say you can't be a pastor without knowing the Greek, but knowing the Greek, knowing some Hebrew, knowing the languages, and that's what turned me on to Greek. Is we've got all these, how many English versions are out there, right? But you whittle it all down to the Greek is the Greek. Now there may be different manuscripts, but there's not enough difference in the manuscripts to cause issue. And so when we're looking at the Greek in our interlinear, we're looking at the original. And I like that. I want to get down to brass tacks. Give me the text, right? Now, that doesn't always make things easy to translate. You still have to go into English somehow and get it. But that's kind of what got me started with it. And I like going to the source, right?
Mike, I think I asked this months ago or a year ago, but I've already forgotten. What is your preferred text?
It's mostly what ended up in my lap. I go with the Nestle Allen, Westcott and Hort. There's pros and cons to those, but the Nestle Allen.
Latest edition or?
The latest edition is the good one to have, but I'm not gonna spend, what, $40 every time they
Right.
you know.
Right.
I think my version is the 28th version or something. But, you know, I've got, and I think we're gonna talk about this at some point down the line, but it says what, you know, what the text is and what they use and whatnot. So, again, I don't strain at the text itself, because there's not gonna be enough difference to really warrant a doctrinal shift in thinking, right? All right. Yoda subscript. Breathing marks. Every word beginning with a vowel or diphthong must have a breathing mark. There are no rules to indicate which mark is to be used. It's a matter of spelling learned by vocabulary and observation. So breathing marks. There are two marks, smooth and rough. The smooth, notice the curvature of the breathing mark. In the smooth, in the rough, notice it's facing the other way. So the way I explain it, it's like a boat, a sailboat, okay? It's going from left to right. In Greek is read from left to right. The wind is blowing this way, so it's smooth sailing, okay? And it's just akuo. You pronounce that akuo. And it's got the acute accent mark, so it goes up a little bit. Akuo, I hear. The rough breathing has an H sound to it. So it's when the wind is contrary to your ship and your sail, it's rough sailing, right? So it's a sound. So this would be pronounced hagios. And that's where we kind of get the H in the English from. The rough breathing sound in the Greek gives us that H in the English. So hagios, which means holy. This one is horizo. Horizo, meaning to define, or a definition, or a limit. And that's where we get the word horizon, that H sound, horizon. I think predestined has horizo in it, because you're looking at the limit, you're looking at, you know, what's out there. It's predestined, it's already done. So you have smooth breathing and you have a rough breathing. So always look for those breathings and know there's going to be an H sound when there's that rough breathing mark. The only consonant or non-vowel to receive a rough breathing mark is rho. The H sound does not affect the pronunciation of rho. So you don't go, and I used to pronounce it rhema. I used to give it a sound. I was wrong. There is no H sound, it's just rhema. Rhema. And you have logos, which is word, and you have rhema, which is the spoken word. It's the uttered word. So when you have the rhema tu theou, the spoken word of God, it's the uttered word, not the text like logos might mean.
So why didn't they just use a smooth breathing mark on that one?
Don't know. If you have your analytical lexicon, go to the row section. And I didn't say to bring it today, so if you don't have it, it's fine. Let's see if you can find the row section. And if you don't have one, look over your neighbor's shoulder there. Now in mine, I've got basically 1, 2, 3, maybe 3.5 pages worth of words that begin with row. Look at each word and the breathing mark that's on top of it or to the left of it. Is that a rough or smooth?
Let's see yours. Mine's
It's rough.
Mine's an English alphabetical order.
It's rough.
So it's
Too
rough.
small, I can't tell.
It's very small, but it's rough.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On all
All of them.
Forward or a backward sail?
Yeah, it's the
It's
rough
backward.
sailing.
Backward sail, yeah.
So it's there, and row is the only one that has that, the only consonant.
But I guess they're not.
You're right. So again, you know, if you pronounce it wrong, it's not a big deal. It's not going to take away from the meaning of the word or your exegeting of the word. But when you're conversing with others, you want to be as intelligent as possible while you're doing this. All right,
So-
accent mark. Go ahead.
Just Need Mark.
Mike, that particular dictionary is English words and it's actually alphabetical.
Right?
Should I be getting one that's actually Greek words and it's listed in the Greek alphabet's order?
An analytical lexicon
Yeah.
is what you need. Do you have one?
No, I can get one. I don't have one, but I do have a Strong's exhaustive concordance, and the
Not good enough.
glossary on that one
Not
is
good
in
enough.
that
You
order.
can borrow this one as well.
Okay.
I had all three for you in case you needed it.
Okay,
So
thanks,
you
Mike.
can borrow that.
Yeah.
And that is alphabetical in Greek, but it follows the English alphabet pretty well. Like Rho, Sigma, Tau, PQRST, it's like the English, thankfully.
Okay.
Hebrew I have a tough time with. Hebrew is more graphical to me, whereas Greek is more close to the English letters, so I can see the relationships there. Hebrew is just more difficult.
Unless you're uppercase throws me for a loop.
Yep.
Just totally.
All right, accent marks. We have the acute, I pointed them out there, the grave and the circumflex. With the acute, the sound goes up. So it's a kuo, a kuo. You're going up in sound. Grave means you go down, kai. You're going down, kai. And notice it's either leaning to the right or it's leaning to the left. Now, when looking words up in the analytical lexicon, that accent will be different because it's by itself. When it's in the text, the accent may be on the other side because it's with other words for pronunciation. So, I don't memorize accents. And I'm going to give you a quote from Dana Manti. He's going to slam me for this. But I don't worry about the accents. I just know they're there, and it helps me pronounce it. But I'm not gonna memorize the rules for accents. I don't care. All right. Maybe that's bad on me, but that's where I go.
Are the accent rules for Koine Greek different than modern Greek?
I haven't studied modern Greek. I know there are lots of differences. So my guess would be yes, but I don't know for sure. And then the circumflex, that little curvature thing, it's a rising and descending sound. So it's oikos, oikos. So acute is akuo, up, grave is down, kai, and then circumflex is up and down, oikos. Accents serve to distinguish various forms from another. And on your bookmark, on the back side, under accents, you'll see Allah and Allah. One means but, and the other means other. Like in Galatians, I'm so upset that you're so soon removed from the gospel, which is another gospel, but isn't another of a different kind or whatever. There's Allah there, meaning other, and the other one is basically a conjunction, but. The Allah, the conjunction Allah, shows a great contrast, right? There's this, but there's this.
Pronunciation for each, does it vary, or is it just in the written form?
Because the first one has an acute, I might go Allah or Allah. Or the other one is just Allah. So there may be a slight difference in the first one because there's an acute accent.
So here's a good question of how they came up with these. I mean, these are the same two words. I mean, if you saw it all, it unseals all the caps, and there's no punctuation at all. Somebody had to figure out which was but and which was other.
Sure did.
Context.
Yeah.
And we do that with English too. We got so much confusion with English too. So
I think I looked it up at one point. I think it was actually in the 1800s when they came up with the punctuation, but that to me that sounds too late. I have to do more research on that, but yeah, that was, again, reading that, it kind of threw me for a loop.
That is late.
All right. Accents. When a breathing mark and an accent stand on the same syllable, the breathing mark stands in front of the accent if it is acute, and under the accent if it's circumflex. So here we have house, basically, oiku and oikos. So the accent is on one side there, the accent is underneath that. It's just one of those things that you might look at those and why do they have that? I don't know. That's just how it ended up being. I haven't really delved in, I could go through his book. I've got a 10-volume set of Kittle, theological word, you could just go deep into this stuff. I haven't done that. It's not that important to me, at least in my stage of my life, maybe. I did when I first learned Greek. I wanted to really get, now not so much. I know it's a house. Whether the accent's where it is, it doesn't really matter to me. Oh, I want to read that quote for you. From Dana Manti. This is like the grammar. Dana, two guys, Dana and Manti. On accents. The matter of accent is regarded with but slight concern by many Greek teachers. But in this neglect, such teachers betray their own lack of appreciation for the genius and history of the language. That's me. If one wishes with finished accuracy to learn the Greek language, it is important that he should master the principles and practice of accenting. That's great, but I don't care. I'm not going to waste. It's not a waste of time. Anything you can learn in the Greek is great stuff. If you want to go beyond what I do, great, because you'll know more. You'll be able to look at it and read it eventually in a non-interlinear. It's just strictly Greek. You can read it. I'm not there yet. I probably won't ever be there. I'm not. The interlinear is too much of a crutch for me because I like to have it there. But depending on where you want to take this, learn the accents. There's lots of good stuff there, but for me, I'm not going to do it.
If we were speaking that Greek to each other, then those accents probably would be.
Sure, if it was a language we spoke all the time, we'd have to learn it right or
To
correct.
read it, we can see the accent and it tells us.
Exactly. But the big thing with accent is like the word Allah. It's the same word, but it has different accents. So knowing that difference, that's key. And the context, again, will tell us that. Punctuation marks. In the Greek, the comma is the comma, the period is the period. The colon is not our normal colon. It's a period that's raised up, right? It's missing the bottom part. And then the question mark is a semicolon. So on the bookmark, the front side where it says Grace Bible Church beginning Greek class, Gnoskes ha anagnoskes. So you'll notice there's a semicolon at the end of that. That's a question. And we're not going to answer that today. That's up to you if you want to investigate it. Some of you have been in the class, you might remember what that means. But we'll get there. But it's a question.
And to think that the punctuation marks were not there, so somebody decided that they wanted semicolon is now a question.
Right?
Who made that decision?
Syllables. So we have the Greek word anthropos, meaning man. And you have antipenult, penult, and ultima. Those are the names of those syllables. There is one vowel or diphthong per syllable. So in helping yourself to pronounce, anytime you see a diphthong, that's one sound, or one syllable, I should say. And then if there's another singular vowel, that's another syllable. So that helps you pronounce knowing that there's one vowel or diphthong per syllable. Only the final three syllables take an accent. So if they add on stuff to the beginning of a word, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of accents on that part of it.
What if there's 4 syllables? Is there another name? Are there words with 4 syllables in Greek?
There are, but I don't know. I've never heard of anything other than those 3.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I should start writing all these things down and dig deep in
So
my
next
books.
time somebody asks you,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's the answer.
That's a good question. All right. questions about anything thus far? Bookmark, everything is there.
Are there any groups that actually speak in Coinate Group as like a club or a group just so they can talk to each other and learn the language quicker? Because I would think speaking it would make you think it more than
True,
just
true.
read it.
I'm not aware of any. There might be, you know, maybe even college students, seminary students might have some kind of thing like that. Now, there is the Daily Dose of Greek by Plummer. I think, is it Plummer? Or
Yeah, it's plumber.
Plummer, where he basically he diagrams the sentence for you, tells you what word goes with what, and then he'll pronounce it for you. And sometimes he'll exegete it and give some doctrinal statement concerning it. So that's one way to hear it pronounced, the way he pronounces it. Again, there are some people that go the modern pronunciation. I don't like it. It's just it's too different from what I learned. I'm not going to relearn it. But again, it has its location in modern Greek. We're trying to learn the old stuff, right? We're going to try to take a break around 10, just to give you some potty break time and whatnot. We'll see how it goes. But again, you gotta go. Just don't raise your hand. Just go. Oh, and one more very important thing. You know the bread that we have on Sunday? It's already here in the morning. So when we have class, if there's a Danish or something in there, we have access to it, okay? Just
Very
saying.
important. Very important, essential.
And there's coffee too.
Yes.
Gotta be the-
Is the machine on?
No, but we turn it on.
There's a
There's a
carrier.
Break.
Yeah, I use it on Fridays, yeah.
Okay. All right, parts of speech. Not all are agreed as to the specific number of the Greek parts of speech. And in the English, there's 8 parts of speech. All right? We're going to list 10 parts of speech. For instance, noun. A noun is a part of speech in English and Greek. A noun, of course, is a word that refers to a person, place, or thing, a state, or a quality. Nouns have something called case, gender, and number. And next week, or next time we meet, when we talk about the inflection stuff, we'll go over that stuff a little bit more closely. But nouns have case, gender, masculine, feminine, neuter, and number, singular, plural. All right? In case I won't worry about that right now. So every noun has those 3 elements associated with it. So here we have anthropos. That happens to be in the nominative case, masculine, gender, and singular in number. And then we have a pronoun, a word that replaces or substitutes a noun. So for examples, we have ego, which means I. It's a pronoun I. That second word there, is that a rough or smooth breathing?
That's rough.
It's a rough breathing, so it has an H sound. So it's hemes, hemes, meaning we. And then that third one, we have a diphthong and a smooth breathing. So that would be ow, alta, alta, meaning it. It could also mean self, like an automobile, self-mobile. But pronouns replace or substitute for noun.
You pronounce that alta
Alta,
instead of al.
alto.
Is that because of the accent mark on it?
That's part of it, and because it's an omicron, has that ah sound at times. It's an ah dominated sound. That's why some people pronounce it logos instead of logos. In archaic, ein halagos. It's the ah sound of that omicron, not the o sound. I think it's the short o.
Correct myself all the time.
It's confusing because I've been listening to 1 John online to what I thought was a Koine Group pronunciation, and they say ho.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I think
And they say logos.
the modern Greek, I think they do that because I've heard Eastern Orthodox, and they do their liturgy in Greek, and I think they have more of a.
This was a modern Greek though,
No?
I would say
Okay.
supposedly a Koine Greek.
But then that confuses the omicron with the
Omega.
Omega, yeah.
So say it would just have one pronunciation.
Yeah.
Well, like in a diphthong, the omicron has an O sound as opposed to an ah sound, because it's ooh
Yeah.
as opposed to ow. All right, so we got nouns, pronouns, adjectives. A word that limits or qualifies a noun or other substantive. An adjective must agree with the noun it modifies in gender, number, and case. Now we're talking Greek now, all right? So agathos means good. Kakos means bad. And that's where we think kaka comes from, right? I'm going with that. But whatever word, if it's agathos anthropos, the good man, okay, you got os and os. Those they have to match up. The adjective matches up in case number and gender, right? I mix those up all the time in my order. So the adjective, you can tell what adjective goes with what noun based on the endings and the case number, gender.
What would be one that would disagree and be incorrect?
None that I know of. I mean, they must agree. The definite article. In English, we have the word the as a definite article, right? And the word a, we have the word or we have a word. A would be an indefinite article. It's just, a word somewhere. The word is very definite, right? Well, definite article identifies or makes definite the noun it modifies. There is no indefinite Greek article. There is no a word. We substitute that in the English. And God was a word, and the word was a God, because there's no definite. There's that issue with John 1:1, which we'll hopefully get to. I don't think we ever did get to that in our last class, but
That's a Jehovah's Witness interpretation, right?
yeah, and others. So, the arthrous or articular use. Whenever there's a definite article, it's either the arthrous use or the articular use. You can use, they're interchangeable. Right? That means that the article is present, as in ha theos. And notice the definite article has what kind of breathing mark? Rough. And it has that H sound, right? So it's ha theos, not ho theos. Okay?
Can I ask you an off question about
Sure.
theos? In 1 John, they use theos and theon. Are you going to get into this class, or can I ask you after class what the difference is?
It's the form of the word, and that's where the case comes in.
Okay.
Is it to the God, for the God, from the God, of the God, or just vocative God?
Okay.
Whatever one I use, it has its own ending to it. So, yeah,
But that would be the root word still.
yes, that's the basic word. It's the nominative case, basic setting. Then you add on and you change the form if it means of or to or for or whatever. So yeah, it's the same word, different form.
Okay.
And that helps in your interpretation. Now, there's a couple of verses that talks about the faith of Jesus. We are saved by the faith of Jesus. No, we're not saved by his faith. He doesn't believe for us. Well, that in that instance is called the objective genitive. It's faith toward him, or our faith of him, not Jesus' faith for us, right? So in the English, it doesn't quite come across right, but because of the form and the objective genitive form, we interpret it maybe differently. Okay, so the arthrous, articular, means the presence of the article, like ha theos. The anarthrous use, anytime you put n or a sometimes in front of a word, it means the opposite, or it negates it. The alpha privative, thank you. Alpha privative in the Greek gives it a negative connotation. Gnostic, or gnosis, to know. Agnostic, doesn't know. right? So that all for privative gives it the negative connotation. But the anarthrous use means the article isn't there, as in theos down the bottom. So with the article, generally it means identify, the God. And we wouldn't necessarily pronounce the God gave you this, we just say God gave you this because we know who we're talking about. When the article is lacking, then it's the deity or the quality of God that we're usually talking about.
Is millennial a Greek word?
Millennial.
So, because there's millennial and there's amillennial, and wonder if that came from the same thing, because amillennial is no millennium, basically, right?
Right? I don't know. It'd be good, something good to look up. Now, we are limited to what's in our Greek interlinear or our Greek text, right? There were probably many other words that are out there, the vernacular, that didn't end up here. So we don't have all the words that actually existed, but we have what was given to us for God's purpose, right? So there may be other things out there that we wouldn't run across because it's not there, but it could have been in Koine, for sure. Again, the presence identifies, the absence qualifies when the definite article is there.
So just to, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but for the first example, you're making an identity claim when you're saying, you're identifying God. Whereas the second one, you're doing it as predication or a description.
Mm-hmm.
You're describing, you're saying, in the case of John 1:1, the Word was God. The Word has deity. You're not denying identity, but you're not making an identity claim. You're making a claim, you're predicating deity of the Logos. And I think that in my mind, I'm thinking identity, predication, or description. That's the way I'm...
Okay, that works.
All logos is repeated in 1:1 3 times.
Verbs. A verb is a word that describes an action or state. It's the point of the sentence. And I believe it's James White. James White is the guy that I was told that in his preaching notes a lot of times he'll take the Greek and he'll print it out and he'll highlight the verbs. And that's what he preaches from, because he uses the verbs. Because the verbs are important. It's the action, it's the doing, right? Prepositions are also huge too, but verb is the thing, the point of the sentence. Verbs now have tense, voice, mood, person, and number. And that's also based on the ending that the verb has, right? So akuo is a present active indicative, first person singular, I hear. So all that present active indicative, first person singular, all of what I just said is found in that ending, the omega. Now if it's akuus or akuate, or it has a different ending, then it's going to change the tense, the voice, the mood, the person, the number. So in English, we don't have endings. Greek has inflection or endings, and each ending tells you everything about that word. So we're going to memorize the present active indicative endings. O-S-A, amen, ete, usi. Those are the endings. You'll memorize those. You'll never forget those once you learn them. There are a bunch of other endings out there as well. And the more you can memorize, the more you can look at it and know. I'm not there yet. But I can basically get to where I need to go. But the endings they have everything you need to know about that word in it. And that's why if you buy an app or you get a piece of software that tells you, oh, this is a present active indicative, well, I don't know what that means yet. Of course not. You don't. You're just learning it. But once you learn those things, then you buy the software, and the software tells you it's a present active indicative. You say, I know what that is. So then you don't have to look it up in your analytical dictionary. You just put the mouse cursor over it. It tells you what it is, and because you have a knowledge of what those pieces are, you can interpret what it's saying. And that just comes with skill. That's knowledge, that's time, that's repetition. All right. Adverb. A word used to modify a verb, adjective, or another adverb by expressing time, place, manner, degree, cause, etc. Adverbs are used to express relationships of time, place, manner, and degree. Takeus. 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 It means quickly, and I haven't really investigated this. I keep saying it, I never investigated, but I think the word taxi comes from it. You know, quickly, get me there on time type of thing. That may be just my imagination, but I've never really dug deep into that. Adverbs trip me up a lot anyway. Okay. Participle. A participle is a verbal adjective, or a word that shares both the qualities of a verb and an adjective. Now, and so it gets a little thicker here. A participle has tense, voice, mood, like a verb, and it also has case, gender, and number, like a noun, right? So a participle is a little bit of both.
A verb now. It's a verb now.
That's it. Or a verbal adjective. So, in our example there, we have pas, ha, pistuon. From pistis meaning faith, pas meaning all. So, pas, ha, pistuon is a present participle. And the way I would interpret it is, every single one believing, or every single one constantly exercising faith. It's not whosoever, it's every single one doing this, constantly exercising faith. That participles are great. They're fun to play with. Then there's prepositions. A preposition is a word that helps express relationships and helps express case function. So we were talking about the case ending. Is it theos? Is it theon? Well, if we have a preposition there, it helps us determine what that ending is definitely going to be. If there's an N, meaning in, it's a preposition in, then we know that the ending is going to mean probably locative, it's in, right? So prepositions help you with the case form and what it actually relates to. There are 18 proper prepositions. That means they can be compounded with verbs. Katekonton. We're going to be in Romans in our studies here, Romans chapter 1. Suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. The word suppress is kata, the preposition kata, which has a sense of down, and to hold. Was it?
Katekonton or
Katekonton is the form. Ko? It's to hold, the word for I hold. So it's I hold, or I'm suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. So that's a compound verb, and it's got a proper preposition attached to it. Right? There are 42 improper prepositions, or prepositions that cannot be compounded with verbs. You'll never find those attached to a verb. And I have if I remember correctly, we have a bookmark on prepositions. There's a ton of prepositions in your textbook. So for example, dia means through or because of. I am never saved. Can't think of the verse. It's never dia piston. I'm never saved because of faith. I'm not saved because of my faith. As if I could garner enough faith and, oh yeah, I'm saved now because I have enough faith. So you'll never find that form. I think it's dia piston, because of faith. You'll never find it. It's dia pisteos, I think is what it is. It's through faith. It's through the instrumentality of faith that we are saved. It's the instrument that God uses to bring us to himself. Right? So you can make the grammatical argument that it's never because of faith. because you never find that sequence of dia and this form of the word, which would mean because of. So knowing your grammar, you could look and say, well, see, it's dia pisteos, or dia piston, I forget what it is now. I should probably put that there one of these days. So prepositions are important. They're helpful to us. Then there's conjunctions. An uninflected word used to join two words, phrases, clauses, or sentences. Kai is one of those. This and this and this. Kai, 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 kai. And then gar means for, or since, or then. Now, is that an acute or a grave accent on gar? It's a grave. If it was pointing the other way, it'd be gar. You had to go up with it. But it's gar. It goes down because it's a grave accent. And something I'll be saying throughout, gar is also what we call a post-positive. In a sentence, gar won't be first. It'll always be the second. It's the post-positive. That means it's second in the sentence. But when you interpret it, you always put it first. For, unto this, whatever. Even though it occurs second in the sentence, it's always pronounced and interpreted as first. Post-positive. How they got there, I don't know. It's just that's just a rule. That's the way it is. Conjunctions. Then you have particles. An uninflected word used to show syntactical relationships, words referring to other words, to connect words, phrases, clauses. Some consider particles to include adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions. And so I throw in there, it deals with the odds and ends in Greek grammar. When in doubt, call it a particle. They're just these little odd things. So day is one of those. It can mean but, or and, or also, or now. It all depends on the context. Alright, so the Greek parts of speech, most people agree it would be noun, pronoun, adjective, definite article, verb, adverb, participle, preposition, conjunction, particle. So we're not going to get through all of those in our 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Participles are an animal by itself, so we have at least one class on just participles by themselves. Prepositions, we're definitely going to hit prepositions because you're going to see those all the time. They're very useful. Conjunctions, we'll run across those. But I want you to be aware of it. So when you're going through and you're reading and it says it's a verb, it's an adverb, it's whatever, we're starting to think again of grammar in these words.
So we really need to know our English grammar really well.
We do, it helps.
Yeah, this is like, I'm going back to like the 70s, so I was thinking I should have really studied that.
Yes, yes.
Now it's coming into play.
All right.
Yes.
Do we need a 5-minute break? Okay, let's take a break.
I think there's a booklet, I don't remember who the author is, it's been out for a while, and it's maybe by ACE publication, English Grammar for Greek Students, I think is the title, something
wow.
like that, yeah, and it's a quick read, you can probably find it on Amazon.
English grammar for Greek
Yeah,
students.
I think that's the title, yeah, and, because
When
what you just said, when I started to go after Greek, I realized, wait a minute, stop, go back to grammar